not just through the work of the Washington Ireland programme, but through the work also that it represents, the work of peacemakers. Back in 1997, when Shane went off to Washington and I came into St. Patrick's Hall, we did not then have the Good Friday Agreement. Actually, we didn't really have even a rumour of the Good Friday Agreement, if the truth be told. We had fragments. We were still digging that hole. A lot of people were trying to fill the hole in, but the danger was you'd bury all the people in the hole if you kept on throwing stuff in on top of them. You had to bring them with you. You had to get, it would have been so much easier if we could have just taken a load of soil and dumped it over all that crowd, wouldn't it? Can't do that with people. Got to persuade them out of the hole. That's what we had to do. They had to be persuaded to get out of that hole. Actually, bad and all as the hole was, it had become a culture of comfort for people. That culture of conflict was comfortable. They were familiar with it, familiar with the language of distrust and contempt and all of that. Familiar with living cheek by jowl with people to whom they were still strangers, whom they dared to presume that they knew, would even tell you, what they thought, what that other crowd thought, which was always, of course, much worse than what we thought. All that stereotyping, it was a comfort zone. People had to be taken up out of that hole and opened up to that new landscape. And that new landscape was going to be challenging because nobody really knew what was out there, except that God knows it had to be better than the hole, a whole lot better. And so it has proved to be with your help. In the years since the Good Friday Agreement, this generation, and it is no accident that the Washington Intern Programme comes at a time when Ireland has the best educated generation in its history, ever, bar none. The most high achieving generation, bar none. And here are these young people now, and that landscape is theirs. That landscape is theirs. As we heard Mark tell us, yes, it's tough at the moment. Economically, it is very, very, very difficult. There is no doubt. I don't need to tell the Americans in the audience, and I don't need to tell the Irish people or anybody else in the audience just how difficult it is. But the Washington Intern Programme was not preparing you for a life of easy roads or a counsel of perfection. It was helping to prepare you for an obstacle course that you wouldn't be frightened of, because you'd have confidence in yourself, and you'd have confidence in what comes from working with others to shift an obstacle. There's a wonderful expression in Seamus Heaney's poem from the Canton of Expectation, which describes the extraordinary, new, huge energy, intellectual force that was created when second-level education came to Northern Ireland, as it did at the end of the 1940s, a little bit later here, in fact, considerably later here, the 1960s. And he describes those, what he describes as lives that might have, heads that might have dozed their lives away against the flanks of milking cows. Now, he said, they're busy penciling and paving these new grammars, these new imperatives. And very interestingly, he uses a phrase about them that I think is so important for this generation and really could summarize the graduates of the WIP programme. Intelligences, brightened and unmannerly as crowbars. It's a wonderful expression, because it's going to be an obstacle course out there. And that obstacle course will come at you when you least expect it. We were cruising along here thinking life was golden, and then we realized that in back of so much success, in back of a new entrepreneurial zeal, there had been a serious overstretch of reach and of imagination, and we had to pull that back to manageable proportions. And this generation, they will learn that lesson. They've learnt it early. Ireland has only recently arrived among the wealthy nations of the world. It was a lesson to be learnt, a hard lesson to be learnt, but at a very early stage. We're also at a very early stage of our peace process. It's still needing nurturing. It's still needing good gardeners. It's still needing people who, when they see an obstacle, think, right, What team can I get around me? What skills do we need to remove this? And I know that in and through the Washington Ireland programme, you have become people, not just highly skilled already, but people who pursue upskilling, who don't ever arrive at a point of thinking, well, I know everything now. I'm full of confidence, let me out to run the world. But people who know there is much to learn about the world and from each other. And that's a very, very valuable lesson and a wonderful civic resource. So we gather tonight to celebrate and to be so grateful for the people who around kitchen tables come up with good ideas and who help us then to make from that good idea, help us to advance the great ideas in the world. Peace, prosperity, to bring it at home, and then to share it with the world, because one of the things that the leadership programme also insists, of course, on is your service to humanity, your service to others in the world, much, much less fortunate, who are waiting for their day, who are waiting for someone to care enough about them to say, do you see that obstacle there? I'm going to put my shoulder to yours, and between us, we'll help to shift it. I know that this programme, over the years of its development, now in its 15th year, and it's, beg your pardon, actually going into its 16th year now, and in the years to come, will be an extraordinary resource from which we will see so many benefits. I don't know, was it Robert Louis Stevenson who said that you never ploughed a field by turning it over in your mind? I think it was Stevenson anyway. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but anyway, you never plough a field by turning it over in your mind. We needed to seed. We needed to do the work, hand to hand, friend to friend. This programme has brought people into each other's orbit who might not otherwise have had the chance to grow in friendship and, importantly, in a safe and secure environment, learn the language of free and frank engagement across the chasms of identity that we need to bridge in this country to be able to really plough that new landscape that we are facing now. We are almost entirely out of the whole of history's making. It will be your generation who will live to see what grows on that landscape. We're now just beginning to seed it with much better things than we've ever seeded it with before. But you, please God, will live to see a rich, rich harvest. And I simply cannot thank enough Carol for the day you had that good idea around your table. All the people who gathered around that great and wonderful idea, too many to mention here. To every one of you, a fervent thank you. To the young people who committed to the programme, because you could create the best programme in the world, but if the young people didn't apply, didn't show up, then it would be a wasted effort. So to the main ambassadors for the programme, who are the graduates, a very, very big thank you. There's an old Irish expression that says, Bíonn siúlach scéalach. It means the traveller has many tales, but he's also a person with a wide perspective, and that is you. You are the people who travelled, the people who learnt, and the people who understand that the more you travel and the more you travel through life, the more there is to be learnt. But importantly, you have your contribution to make to the learning curve of so many others. It's been almost customary this evening to end every speech with a phrase from that great and sadly missed friend of Ireland, Senator Ted Kennedy, so maybe you'll let me do the same. He said, "The hope rises again, and the dream lives on. It lives through you, through your lives, through your hands, through your hearts. Enjoy everything that lies in front of you. You are our hope, and you are our pride and our joy." Gar mille maith agaibh.